Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we'll talk about date and time handling in Rust. We'll explore instant and duration, which is part of standard Rust library. And also we'll import one more crate, which is known as chrono. Inside this cargo.toml file, we have to add chrono as a dependency, and you can pick the latest version which is available whenever you are trying to run this program. And please ignore the rest of the dependency which are not relevant for this video. Now let's get started. First we'll talk about instant. So instant has a few methods which is part of before we have to use it. It is complaining that it is unable to resolve this instant type. So we have to import duration and instant from the standard time library. Instants are only used to compare to one another. There is no method to get the number of seconds or number of minutes from this instant. Instead, it only allows to measuring the duration between those two instants. So let me explain what I mean. So to add some quick delay, loop through 10 million times. We're planning to compare how much time this loop takes. This is now the instant which is calculated at this moment, and elapsed returns the amount of time elapsed since the instant now was created. And during the duration we can fetch the seconds, microseconds, and how much duration it lasts between those two time. Now let me debug some more information. For example, duration and as millis and as seconds. So we can fetch micro and nanoseconds as well. So if you try to execute using cargo run, I'm running this cargo watch mode so that we can able to see whenever we're making any changes and the program is auto saved, at that time this output would be reflected in the right hand side. And this duration is like 4, and the fractional part is up to nanosecond, 4 dot some seconds, and it is like 4861 milliseconds and 4 as in seconds. So we can display in different formats as the duration. This instant with the combination of duration is very helpful in evaluating a piece of code block, how much time it takes to execute. So for performance measurement, this is very much helpful. And apart from duration and instant, now explore some of the much more helpful methods when it comes to date and time handling. We want to deal with what is the time and do some date formatting, or deals with the time zone. Because time zone is very big beast. So it is much more confusing in any other programming language. There is no easy and shortcut available. But there are certain libraries or crate in the case of Rust will going to help you to provide some of the easy to use utility method which will abstract lots of complexity when you are only going to deal with the standard library. Now explore some of this time zone and date formatting issue now. So we are going to use fast module known as UTC. This UTC is not part of standard library, it is part of chrono. So if you see the Rust compiler is very helpful enough to guide us to import this chrono UTC module. Let's do that. And along with UTC, let us import some other additional libraries, we are going to use it in one shot. So we have imported UTC date time, and because there are two duration, we just rename or alias it to using chrono duration so that we can differentiate between the standard library and this duration. And we have imported few more local, fixed offset, date like and time like, etc. These are going to be helpful when we are in few minutes. So this is the date time. This is not the instant. Date time has lots of inbuilt functionality available. For example, if you want to add, because this is a today's date, and UTC is very efficient whenever you are trying to deal with the date and time, and you don't need the local time. There is you can convert between the local time to the UTC time and vice versa. But whenever you are dealing with a global audience, so it is recommended to deal with the UTC time zone. Then it will make your code and date processing very much standard. And if you want to display in your front end, then front end can do conversion from UTC to that particular local time zone. But it is always recommended and efficient to use UTC time zone wherever you can. And this particular datetime struct or datetime, so it provides function. For example, we can add some duration and we can subtract from today's date. In this case, we are using chrono duration because it is much more user-friendly way to add 2 weeks. It has functionality. For example, we can add based upon 2 weeks, 4 days, few days, hours and minute and so on. So using the normal duration from standard library, we cannot do that. So it is very handy method using like chrono duration where we want to add 2 weeks. This will return 2 weeks time, and this add will going to add today plus 2 week. And we can print it. Let us subtract from today's date. We want to subtract 60 days. This is much more readable and very easy to use. So if you notice here, it is sub. So subtract the given duration from the current date and time. And if you notice, in both cases it is written option, because if the possibility the date, if you are adding or subtracting, may not be valid one, in that case it will return none. Otherwise it will return a valid date and time. So if you try to see how the output looks like, this future and past both are option type, some with some payload. And if you notice, like this is the date part, T, and separated by the time part, like hours, minute and second and so on. And Z is for the UTC time zone. And we'll see in a few minutes how we can convert between various time zone. This is, there are two, this is the local, this is the now we are printing, which is UTC date and time. And this, if you want, if you don't want to use UTC date and time, rather you want to use local time zone, then you can do local now as well. I am from Australia, so if you see, this time zone will be reflected in the Australia Sydney time zone. This now is the UTC time zone. If you notice the difference between these two, so here there is no, in this local time, there is a plus 11, this is the offset. It is plus 11 hour from this UTC time zone, and in UTC time zone you can see the Z at the end. There is no offset. And now I am going to show you, it is very simple that you know how to get the UTC time zone, because that is the standard. And by this time you can know how to get this local time zone by using this local now. But what if you want to get a time zone which is a bit different country, for example India? We know that India time zone is like UTC plus 5.5 hours. There is no daylight saving, so there is no confusion over there. So how to get the time zone of India and display the time? For that, right, we have to use some other module, fixed offset. For in this case, we have to do little bit of mathematics. It is like we have to pass this time number as a second, and we have to pass east and west. East is like plus, if there are some US and some there are minus. So in that case, we have to give west, which are like plus 5.5 hours from UTC. This is 5.5 hours ahead of UTC. So 5.5 multiplied by 60, will come to this number. So once you pass it, you will get this number as per according to UTC plus 5.5. It doesn't say that it is from India time zone, but we know it is a standard knowledge that it is UTC plus 5.5 is the India time zone. So in this case, if you see this is only written is plus 530. It is not going to return. This is just, that is just the offset. It is not the duration. Now let's get this date time. So we can use this now UTC time zone, and we have to provide this with time zone. This will change this associated time zone, and we have to pass this offset with this number. Then we will get a date and time. And if you see here, this time got changed. Local time zone is like 7:55 p.m. and India time zone is 2:25 p.m. And if you, in this case, if you can see plus 530, this time is exactly like India time zone, but it will give me an indication that it is plus 530 from UTC. Now again, let's try to see some of the other small utility methods. For example, so you want to know, like, it is the AM or PM, or sometime you want to get this hours for 24 hours, that also you can get the now.hour 24, or you can get now.hour 12 module, like past 12 to 12 and 12 to 12 in the evening. So this will give you indication that is PM or not, boolean or hour. This is a tuple it will return. So I'm printing like hour. So it will tell me that it is like 7 p.m. or something. And it is a boolean. If it is PM, then I'm printing PM, else it is AM. So it is 8 AM. It doesn't seem to be right. That's why I am saying it is a bit confusing sometimes. Here I am checking this now is a UTC time zone. UTC time zone is 8 AM. But if you see this local time zone, it is like 8 PM. Now let's convert to the local time zone. If you see local time zone, it would be PM. So 7 PM this time. So UTC time and local time is all the time confusing. Pay key attention that which time zone you are going to use. And if you want to, now let me change this back to now, so that, okay. And using this now date and time, which has lots of other function. What happened? It doesn't like the reference, I think. Now that hour is fine. So this hour we got from these methods, which talk about like which is hour of day, and we are dealing with the UTC time zone. And from this now we can get what is the minute, what is the second, and each PM or AM. So if you see, it is giving more detailed information. So this is the way we can format the string to display that minute, hour, and day, and so on. And let's see that some of the other formatting option. Now we'll see how we can format date and time. We got this UTC time, and we know how to get the local time zone, and we know how to create some offset and do that. But date and time is extremely confusing. European follow a different date and time convention, and US follow a different time. So the formatting is a bit different to different time zone. So let's print some information and see that how it looks like. To make the life simpler or more confusing, there are so many standards which lots of date and time library adhere to. For example, JavaScript browsers, and they understand these standards. This is like RFC 2822, and this is some numbers. You don't need to remember this number, but you know this. There are some standards. And if you see this, by default, this date is coming as year and MMDD. But if you see this RFC, this one is coming with the full form of date, and this thing is coming in this format. There are some different format which notify this in date object. So if you pass as a JSON response to this format, so if your client browser follow that, they can able to instantiate this data object very clearly. So let's say you are building a backend API using Rust, and you send this format. So if they're using some in JavaScript wall, if they're using some moment or some date FNS or some library, they're 100% I'm guaranteed that they will be supporting this format. So it would be very easy. They no need to understand. They no need to format it again. So they can use it this date and time very effectively. And this contains this time zone information as well. 0000 means it is like UTC time zone. And if you want to make your own format, like this year you want to at the beginning, or DD YY you want to do, or DD YY you want to do, you can change any way you like. So this format string, you can refer the documentation available, but this is pretty much standard in most of places you will get it. YM and DD are standard across the board. But still you prefer to better to get this documentation, what this YM and DD stands for. Nobody can remember this. So then it should be good to create your own custom format. And to get this date and time thing, let's say you got an input. You are building some API and you got some date and time from the user. And they send in this format. If you want to parse it, you want to do parse from this particular standard. If you mention, then it will convert a data time object. If the parse fail, then this will return a result, parse result. If it fail, it will throw error. Because we are doing unwrap, it will panic. This is we are getting -6. We are getting some more time zone indicator. So if it is valid or not, we can see. So this is the formatting string y DD and other custom string. And this is after we converted from this RFC standard. And let's say you got input as a different time format from your front-end team or some kind of user input. So in this different format, which doesn't align with any standard. So this is like input you are taking. You can parse from string, but you have to provide this custom formatting option in this second option, so that this will also treat as a date and time. In these two cases, you are getting this user input. In this format you can use if you want to convert your local time to the different format what other team is expecting. And this is what you are getting from, you are making some API call and they send in some different date and time format, and you talk to them, to those team, and discuss and agree with which format they're using. So if this is a very generalized format, you can specify like which time and zone they are expecting. It will be converting to your date and time library. Then you can feel free to use any of your utility methods. For example, if you want to know which day it is, month it is, and you can add it, remove it, and you can do any number of date and time calculation. So now let's see this custom operation. So this DT and custom, these two will look in the same format with both the date and time, and they have their own string representation with the standard format what they are specific to. Before I wrap up for today's videos, I would like to give a big thank you to this Rust cookbook book. So most of the examples are derived from this particular book. So I'll give this link below in the description, so you can feel free to choose this book. And thank you very much for watching my video, and have a good day ahead. Bye bye.